Aloha. Aloha. Namaste. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for inviting me to join you.
So out of the 6 people that I had mentioned, Tulsi, Gabbard, Richard Ojeda, and Elizabeth Warren are the only ones worth talking about. Elizabeth Warren is a progressive.
We go.
I wanted to ask you about the president's recent decision to pull U.S. troops out of Syria. I know that you voted against supporting Syrian rebels with arms and training. And now that the president made this decision the way he made it, do you agree with him?
So I think it is right to get our troops out of Syria. And let me add, I think it's right to get our troops out of Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
She doubled down. Okay.
I think that everybody who keeps saying, no, 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 we can't do that in the defense establishment needs to explain what they think winning in those wars look like.
See that? You saw this, right?
I did.
And where the metrics are. We're now 17 years in Afghanistan, and we control, what is it? That the government controls less than 60% of all the land. It doesn't have the support of the people. The heroin trafficking is up. There are multiple groups that are terrorist groups throughout Afghanistan. Lots of different problems in Afghanistan. And what seems to be the answer from the foreign policy establishment? Stay forever. That is not a policy. We can't do that.
But she dropped the ball when it comes to Bernie Sanders. She didn't endorse anybody, and then he lost Massachusetts by like 1 point. If she would have endorsed one or the other, she was politically relevant, but her support, her neutrality basically allowed Hillary to go on and lose the whole goddamn thing.
Should we wait?
Yeah. Let's...
All right.
Now, having said that, when you withdraw, you got to withdraw as part of a plan. You got to know what you're trying to accomplish throughout the Middle East, and the pieces need to be coordinated, and they need to be coordinated not just in our activities, but this is why we need allies. This is why we build alliances.
Are you troubled by the nature of the president's process around
Are
the
you
Syria
asking
decision?
me whether or not I think foreign policy ought to be conducted by tweet? The answer is no, it should
Quick this ends. Watch.
not. We actually need to plan this out and talk about with our allies how we ensure more safety and stability in the region. But the idea that the way
We go.
to do that is just to continue to keep troops and more troops forever and ever and ever in that part of the world, it is not working. And pretending that somehow in the future it is going to work by some unmeasured version of it, it's a form of fantasy that we simply can't afford to continue to engage in.
So Elizabeth Warren is a progressive. Pay attention to her. A lot of the middle class like her. But I look over her because Tulsi Gabbard picked Bernie as soon as Bernie raised his hand. Tulsi Gabbard was the #1 person that said Bernie Sanders is a badass. Tulsi Gabbard is essentially Donald Trump. So Chris Christie was the first mainstream guy to stand next to Donald and say, hey, he's going to be the president, right? You're supposed to be loyal to the Republicans, right? You're not supposed to speak ill of one another. That's Reagan's 11th commandment.
To gather that evidence, gather the facts, so that that can be presented.
Right. So I guess one of the differences between the early Iraq war and now is that there seems to be very little dissent on the left, or at least among mainstream liberals. They all seem for this. All the big media outlets, all the punditry on television suggests support for Donald Trump from the left. Have you noticed that? And what accounts for that, do you think?
I don't guess to know where people are coming from or why, but I really wish personally, as a veteran, that especially people in positions of power, whether they be in the media or in Congress, in Washington, to be very careful in understanding exactly what the cost of these wars are.
So Tulsi Gabbard is a person that picked Bernie Sanders as soon as he raised his hand. So she had moral clarity. She saw what the nation saw. She's very good at timing. She has great timing. So she had time, supporting Bernie Sanders, and she's running for president right now, right during the shutdown. That's perfect. Right during the shutdown, after the Democrats just won the midterm elections, you get that momentum, and February 3rd, 2020 is right around the corner. So she's going to have to, she's in it for the long haul, but she's a she's military. She can run. She can do this for 2 years.
And what the consequences of a reckless action like the one President Trump took last night will result in. We are seeing already how taking this action by weakening the Syrian government, the Syrian military, de facto, you are strengthening and empowering these terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda in their effort, again, to take over all of Syria.
So there's a ton of great things that Tulsi Gabbard is in favor of, okay? So she has an incredible, awesome, progressive record. Tulsi Gabbard, first of all, identity. She'd be the first Hindu president ever. She'd also be the first American Samoan. She was born in America, Samoa, a U.S. territory, which technically means something. I'll explain that in a second. But she is a U.S. citizen because her parents are U.S. citizens. She's born in U.S. territory. At 2 years old, she goes to Hawaii, and now she's been a Hawaiian ever since. So from 2 to 37, so for 35 years of her life, she's been in Hawaii, which is, U.S. state through and through. It's one of the 50 nifty United States, right? So it's definitely everybody in Hawaii is an American. She is an early supporter for Medicare for All. She had pushed for the Stop Arming Terrorists law. So apparently the U.S. government was giving Al-Qaeda, the enemies of America, on 9/11, weapons to fight somebody or Al-Qaeda, ISIS. I guess apparently some ISIS and Al-Qaeda are okay when it comes to the Syrian war.
We are seeing an increase in the likelihood or the possibility that we, the United States, end up in a direct military conflict with Russia, who are very closely allied with Syria and who have their own military operating in the ground there. And when you consider the consequences of that.
I trust Tulsi when it comes to foreign policy. So she's fought in Iraq with the National Guard. She's seen war, up front and personal. So she's met with Assad in 2017. She has said that the U.S. needs to stop supporting Saudi Arabia. She called Donald Trump Saudi Arabia's bitch. She doesn't hate Putin, which is great. I don't want the fucking Cold War to carry on. Yeah, contain him, détente, but what the fuck? They're not our enemies. The Russians are cool. The Russians are some badasses. I think we got a lot to learn from Russia. Critical of Obama's Russian foreign policy, so she's critical of both Obama and Trump's foreign policy. She's anti-FISA. She's anti-warrantless wiretapping. In fact, actually, when it goes to the war, he's sitting there saying, in these endless wars, he's pulling out of Syria. Tulsi's one of the few supporters. Tulsi's been talking about this for months now.
The United States and Russia being the two nuclear powers in the world, it should be a cause of great concern for everyone.
Yeah, you'd think, except they hacked our election, so we have to. Congresswoman, thank you for joining us. We're out of time. It's really nice to see you tonight. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks, Tucker. Aloha.
She's actually a progressive. When Donald Trump says, I want to stop killing people, she's like, oh, you know what? That's a good idea. Good thinking. Way to restrain yourself. These regime change wars, interventionist wars aren't really working for us anyways. So she's anti-Patriot Act, anti-FISA, anti-warrantless wiretapping. She's pro-choice, pro-gay. Voting record is pro-gay. She loves the gay people, loves gay marriage, loves gay people so much. She's for legal hemp. She's for legal marijuana. She's pro-stimulus. She's for cutting the war budget, repealing the Patriot Act, raising the minimum wage, protect Social Security and Medicare, tax the rich, get out of Afghanistan. She was also one of the few Democratic votes who voted against PAYGO. It was Rohana, AOC, and Tulsi. So only 3 representatives. So she's good at listening to the people. She's good at keeping her ear to the ground and knowing what is right and what is wrong. She has shown a moral clarity when it comes to many issues. So she's a badass. She's an awesome progressive. And the criticisms are a bunch of fucking bullshit.